Okay, so here we are back again. And we're in the middle of Psalm 24. If you happen to have this edition, the one, my recommended one, you'll find it on page 106, 107, but you could find it whatever edition, you have. So,
Leek, can
yeah,
I ask a question?
yes.
I want to know why you recommended this edition, seeing that very often when you're translating, you deviate,
I
sometimes
deviate.
significantly.
Well, okay, so one of the things I liked about it is that it is readable. One of the things, one of the problems I find with most translations, is that they're written by yeshiva guys, um, not by people who are not people who are natural and native speakers of English. So at least this is in real English, which for me is very helpful. It doesn't read like translator ease, which just seems it's like a language all its own. It doesn't, it's and so sometimes I do disagree with his, sometimes I do disagree, or I feel like, but they're mostly stylistic differences, or I feel like maybe he's kind of gone with it, but that's going to happen with any translation, I think. I think that's the nature of the beast. But I do like the English. I think the English is fluid, um, and that's good. It's readable. That's that makes sense. Um, I find a lot of the translations they're just unreadable. They're just painful. Um, Probably the worst being the Art Scroll. There's the Art Scroll translation, which is just horrible. I mean, it's like they suck.
Artful doesn't translate, it comments.
Right, right,
Have
right,
you
right.
ever looked at their translation of Shira Shirim?
Yes, yes, yes. This is a long discussion, but yes, yes, it is. It's pretty. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. Um, but yes, right. So and usually my disagreements, even with this translation, are sometimes when I feel like he's kind of gone with one particular commentator, um, but maybe in doing that kind of missed a nuance, or kind of like shaded out something that maybe shouldn't be shaded out, if that makes sense. Okay. So we'll start from the beginning. David Mizmor, a psalm by David. Ladonai haaretz umloa tevel yoshveva. You hear about the beautiful rhythm of it, right? This psalm has a particular beautiful kind of rhythm to it. The earth belongs to God with everything that is on it, the world and all who live in it. Ki hu yamim yisada, he founded it on the seas. Ve'al naharot yichonaneh, and he fixed it upon the waters. And I said before, this is I think, if I remember correctly, I'm going to check that Reb Zalman did something very interesting with that. He says, the earth and her fullness are yours, the cosmos and its beings. You founded earth on the endless seas of space. You set her by the streams of the great flow. Right? He did something very kind of cosmic with this. Again, I can understand it, because here, when he says, you founded on the seas and fixed it upon the waters, it sounds very much, it keeps it in the realm of kind of ancient poetry and kind of ancient science and geography. And he's trying to kind of give it a more cosmic context. And I can understand why you would want to do that. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, u'mi yakum mimkom kodsho. There's a lot of alliteration here. That ka sound, the kuf, repeated over and over and over again. Who will go up on the mountain of God, and who will stand in his holy place? Niki chapayim, a person of clean hands. Uvar levav, whose heart is pure. Var, interesting. The word var also means also means like a desert. And there's a beautiful midrash that says that in order, why was the Torah? I'm going to talk about this on Shabbat, so don't listen, Harry. But why was the Torah given in the desert, right? Because one has to be empty like a desert in order to be able to receive the Torah, right? One has to be humble and empty. So var here it means not just to have a pure heart, but to have an empty and open heart, a heart that is able to receive. So a person whose hands are clean, whose heart is pure. So now we've talked about, right, action, and we've talked about the heart, talked about the mind and thoughts. Asher lo nasa l'shav nafshi v'lo nishba limima. Person who hasn't sworn in vain by God's name or taken an oath with deceit. A person who's honest in the way that they speak with other people. And it's important. It's an important point. And I'm sure I said this last week, that the condition for our going up to the mountain of God, our condition to have a one-on-one encounter with God, so to speak, is an ethical condition, right? It's not saying, you have to be a big meditator and you have to sit in a cave for 20 years. And, you're not going to be able to approach God unless you are, this master of spiritual purity. No, if you're a person who has clean hands, right? Don't do the wrong things. A person who has a person who has a pure and open heart, right? And a person who doesn't say bad stuff about people, who doesn't swear to things which aren't true, that's a person who's able to go up to the mountain of God and to stand in a place of holiness. And this person, Yisab Racham et Adonai, he will receive God's blessing. He'll get blessing. And he says, and the kindness from God will save him. It says, Ze Dor Dorshav. I love this. He is part of a generation. He's part of a generation. The word Dor doesn't always mean generation. It can also be part of a group, or he is part of those. Okay, he is part of those who are Dorshav, who seek God. And we'll see, by the way, that especially in the next psalm, this idea of seeking God becomes very, very, very important. That he is among those who seeks out God. That he looks for his face, right? But really, of course, God, has no face. So he translates it here as his presence. And then he says, Yaakov Selah. And he calls him Yaakov. So the commentators say, like, well, okay, why all of a sudden is it mentioning Yaakov? So here it says Yaakov's descendant looking for his presence. Other commentators say, like Yaakov looking for his descendant. Others say, just like Yaakov was able to see a ladder, right? He was able to see a ladder that led from the earth to heaven, and he saw the angels going up and down on it, and he himself was able to climb to heaven. So also, remember, the symbolism here is who will go up to the mountain of God. So just like Yaakov was able to climb the ladder, so to speak, to heaven, so also, if you're a person who's pure of heart, if you're one of this member of this generation and group of people who searches for God and who looks for his presence, you will be like Yaakov. You'll also be able to know the ladder is there and to be able to climb the ladder. So Ushiarem Rash, and I think that's actually Ibn Ezra. So that's special for a special treat for my friend. Su she'arim rashechem. Now he switches. Now he switches subjects here, and he now turns himself. He now turns himself to this experience of the temple, right? So he goes from talking about who gets to have this experience, and now he's there, right? Now we're there with him, and he says, "Su sharim rashechem." He says, "Holy temple, lift gates, the holy temple gates, lift your beams, right? Lift yourself up. Lift yourself up. Hinasu pitche olam." He says, doors forever holy, raise yourself, right? He's actually addressing the gates of the temple and asking them to open. And right, and you can see this, of course, you can see this as being external, right? You can also see this as being internal, And he's saying, look, you kind of imagine imagine that holiness is hiding behind these heavy doors, right? It's hiding behind these heavy doors. And he's saying, now please open up these heavy doors, v'yavo melech hakavod, that the king of glory, the king of glory can come in, right? And now we have this kind of we're sort of imagining the temple now as the holy palace of the holy God, and we say, Mize melech hakavod, who is this king of glory? And the idea of asking, so me is a question, right? And ze is an answer in a way, right? So me, ze. So me is I don't know. Ze is I'm pointing to something. So this is a strange question. Me, ze, right? Who is this King of Glory? The one that's right in front of me? Adonai Ezuz v'Gibur. This is God who is mighty and great, and that name here, God is Yud He Vav He. He who was, he who is, and he who always will be, was mighty and great, right? Adonai Gibur Milchama was being compared to somebody who is powerful in war. So just as I watch all these Turkish dramas, so you can easily imagine this, right? Just as the hero comes striding in, right, after a big victory, right? He comes striding into the big victory, right? Opening the flaps of the yurt, right? He comes striding in. So also, I imagine God, right? And now we return and we say, Shu sharim rashechem, holy temple gates, lift your beams. Yisu pitchei olam, open those doors. V'yavo melech hakavod, and let the King of Glory come in. And then we ask again. This is the part I have to say, like, when I hear it, like a part of me always melts. I don't know why it always melts, because we just said it 2 seconds ago. So what happened in those 2 seconds? Right? What happened in those 2 seconds? So I feel like in those 2 seconds, I should have changed. I feel like I should have changed with those 2 seconds. Because now I say, Mihu ze melech hakavod. Before, it was kind of a question, but now I know the answer. Adonai tzvaot. So it says, now, this is one of the names of God that's a very, very interesting name of God. So when I was a kid, we always translated it as the Lord of Hosts. Now, it was always really difficult because for me, a host was somebody who like had a dinner party. So I couldn't figure out like why God was the Lord of people who had dinner parties. That didn't make any sense to me. Then I later found out that hosts was a way of describing like lots of soldiers, like having lots of soldiers. And I was thinking, well, that's also weird. And they said, well, host really means angels, so he has troops of angels. That's another way of another way of thinking about it. And I think one of the commentators says, well, why is he called Adonai Tzvaot, the God of troops, or the God of hosts? He says, well, because it's as if those who we said before, the Mivakshei Hashem, the people who seek him out, okay, they're like his troops. They're like his folks. Okay, so he rules over them. Again, today I'm in a Reb Zalman thing today, but Reb Zalman put it very nicely. He referred to Hashem Tzvaot as the Lord of diversity. So what does he mean? Okay, and I really kind of like that, right? Lord of diversity. Because the one thing we know about, right, when it comes to the angels, right, we know that there are different kinds of, the angels are described as having different kinds of angels. There are different kinds of angels. And those different kinds of angels, what do? They call out to each other, right? They're in this kind of dialogic relationship with each other. So God is surrounded by this diversity of different kinds of spiritual forces. And those different kinds of spiritual forces are talking one to the other, and he's at the center of this. So he's the central point around which all this diversity is swimming and swirling around. So it says Adonai Tzvaot, right? It's God who is the single, right? God who is the single, who is surrounded by all this different diversity and multiplicity. The who Melech HaKavod Tzela, and that who is very important. It doesn't have to be there, right? It doesn't have to be there. You could say, right? It says Adonai Tzvaot Melech HaKavod Tzela. You could just say that he's the king. He's King of Glory. Why does it say the who? So whenever you have who, it's what we call a mute. It's something that's he, in a place like this, it signifies that he and he alone, right? He and he alone is Melech HaKavod Tzela. He himself is the king of glory, right? In a unique, right? In an absolutely, he uniquely is the king of glory. Okay. So thoughts, feelings, meditations. Yes, Nathan.
Okay, yeah, so I like that idea of tzavot as diversity, and one thing that hopefully this isn't too departing from it, but I think of Hashem Tzvakot as a phrase that's associated with the sons of Korach.
Uh-huh.
And because the Talmud says that Chana was the first person to say that
right?
in the prayer of Chana, call God Hashem Tzvakot, and yeah, Shmuel was a descendant of Korach, and there are a few phrases in Psalms where Hashem Tzvakot Imanu Miskavanu Yaakov Sela is from a song for the sons of Korach, and some other places too. And yeah, we talk about Korach. He says that all of the children of Israel are holy, and he had the group. But I'm noticing now for the first time, this is the first time Hashem Tzvakot appears in Psalms, and it's a Psalm of David. So
yeah.
Okay, just a thought. I felt like
Interesting.
sharing. Someday maybe I'll write something about it. I don't know.
Okay. Put it in the file, put it on the index card.
Yeah.
Okay. More thoughts, ideas?
Well, for me, I found this very beautiful because it reminded me of what's written in the Quran about like everything and everybody in praise to God in their own way. It's only us humans and the jinn who are choosing, but the whole diversity.
Yeah.
Everything in the universe is praying to God in their way. So
Yeah.
that was
I love
nice. like popped up in my head.
Yeah. The rhythm of this, it's hard to kind of get, it's hard to share the rhythm, but I feel like the rhythm of this has a little bit of it feels a little bit like a march. I don't know why, but like to me, it sort of has kind of like, I'm not sure exactly what the poetic structure is that I'm responding to, but it has kind of a march-like feeling to me. It has sort of a, which is why we actually use it. I mean, it's kind of used that way, but it has this sort of I don't know, has a very royal kind of feel to it.
I just want to say, I think a lot of this stuff is helpful because like, it is really like a guide to yourself. Because think I said this before, or I've said this in a conversation we had. I think you can't really know God until you like have battled yourself, like you said, being in the emptiness in order to receive the Torah or whatever the thing is going to be this weekend. Like I think that's like all of these stories are like telling us the same thing, that like we are like the thing to conquer. So we can see I don't know. I just feel like all of these things are really beautiful, and they're like a great instruction to how to like lifting the door or something like that. Like I've been having I had this conversation with this guy about, emotional regulation and like being unstuck and, having like being in feeling like you're afraid and making decisions from a fear, or, feeling helplessness and falling into despair. And like these are like this remedy. Like this is like, it's a remedy, like whatever else. It's like a beautiful remedy. Like I don't know, so I just
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier as I was kind of reading this over, thinking like how beautiful would it be if I could just say, lift up just open gates, and if only we're that simple, like if only we're that simple.
well, it's work. That's the word.
Yes,
It's like a
yes, it is.
visual metaphor, and it's poetry to help you like get that way. Jonason's not here, but he's like the good one too, to like, he recommended that book actually about awe and like finding that. Like those are the things, like looking at the poetic imagery and being like, wow, that's so beautiful and stuff. That's how you get there. Like that's like, it seems silly and stuff because we live in this world where we need these solutions to be so much better. But that's why I really like this, because to me that's what this is to me. And also I don't really see a distinction. I just see that that's the path to God. So anyway.
Well, the next one is the next is just an amazing amazing psalm. It's so the rabbis.
Wait, I also had something.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Anna.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm still hung up on this, and I hung up in the sense I love it. The idea that God is accessible, to whom God is accessible. You don't have to do any pilgrimage, go to the mountain, like you said, go to Jerusalem, do Hajj. What's the criteria? You have to have clean hands, clean heart, and clean mind. So basically your speech, thoughts, and clean hands, clean heart, and clean mouth. Right? Speech, thoughts, and action.
Yeah.
Clean yourself, purify yourself. You really don't need to do all this physical conquering sort of distance and time and whatnot, physically achieve something. God is very much available. It begins with yourself and ends with yourself. It's
right.
and it's the most difficult thing to achieve.
Right, and I'm going to say it's not right. None of that is easy, right? None of that is easy, but it's so. What I love about this is so basic. It's so basic.
It's very simple and very, so I studied ballet for years, and if you look at ballet exercises by the bar, every ballet dancer who goes on stage and performs the most difficult things, they begin with the basics and they're very simple.
Right.
But you have to perfect to like I don't know, to millimeter, to every little movement. And I often bring parallel between these two. You perfect everything you do until it's really perfect, and you begin very simple.
Yeah, I think this is a good antidote. I think those particular verses are a good antidote to what I would call magic, spiritual magic bullet thinking. Very often, we're taught that, okay, you just need to do this one spiritual magic bullet, right? If you just do this one practice, if you do this one thing, it's just going to that's what's going to get you there. And here he says, no, it's really keeping your hands clean, keeping your heart pure, and be careful what you say, and all, and the other things, there's no magic bullets to this. It's the bread and butter of being a decent human being. Okay. So Psalm number 25. So the rabbis had to look at all the Psalms, right? So we have a main prayer that we say every morning. We say the Amidah prayer, the standing prayer, which is kind of our main prayer. And afterwards, we're supposed to have a time of supplication and reflection. And ideally speaking, one should be able to kind of sit down and just kind of talk to God at that moment. That would be very good. But the rabbis very rarely trust us to come up with our own words, and will almost always provide us with something to say just in case. And this was their choice of supplication. There are two different choices, depending upon which tradition you follow. But for Sephardim, this was the choice, was Psalm 25 as the Tahanun, as the supplication to be said after prayer. And it is absolutely beautiful. And if I cry during it, then please, you have to forgive me, because it makes me emotional.
But you shouldn't ask for forgiveness for crying.
No,
I
but
think that's beautiful if you can do it.
I don't know. I think when you're my age, it's just sort of goofy. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Any-
We will
No
cry.
worries.
We will cry with you. Come on.
Okay, you cry with me.
There's another Sephardim here, so we cry with you.
Okay, good. Yes. Sephardi power. So, okay. I'm Sephardi convert by now. So, okay. So it starts at the David. Elecha Adonai Esa, it says, literally, I raise my heart to you. Esa really means literally, I raise my heart to you. So lots of ways to understand that. He says here, I direct my heart to you. I like the physical image of I raise my heart to you. I take my hand, and I raise it up to you. Elohai v'chavatachti, say, I trust in you, God. Says, Al avosha ve'al yatzu evayli. Says, let me not be ashamed that my enemies rejoice over me. And so one of the things I love about this is so real, nobody wants to be ashamed. We all live in fear of being ashamed. And it's in so many small ways. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to be embarrassed. And if there are people, we don't want to see the people who don't like us, get a chance to wag their fingers at us. And this is real stuff, this is real stuff, and we, and so, I love that it starts out so spiritual. I raise my heart to you, and like this beautiful image of just total submission and surrender to God. And then I have this opportunity to talk to God, and I tell him the truth. Please don't let me be ashamed. Okay? Don't let me be ashamed. Don't let people walk all over me. It says, okay, Gam kol kovecha lo yivshu. And those who look to you, and this by the way, for our Muslim friends, this kovecha is probably related to the Arabic word taqwa. It means to look expectantly, or to be like hyper to be hyper aware of something, to be super aware of something. So those people who are super aware of you should not be ashamed. Sievoshu abogdim nekam. It says, but let disgrace come upon the thieves, right? Who strip the poor. Now you could, there are different ways. Again, now see, now Linda's gonna, now it's gonna ask me like, why did you choose this translation if you're gonna argue with it? But I'm gonna argue with it. So I'm sorry. So another way of looking at it would be Gam Kokovech Yivoshu. So indeed, all those who place their hope in you will not be ashamed. But who will be ashamed? Right? Yevoshu habogdim rekam. The people who deceive for nothing. Rekam, rek means nothing, means for nothing. And bogdim, a beged, okay, a beged is a garment, okay, a beged is a garment. So, and so what does a garment do? A garment is also a disguise, right? So the people who disguise themselves, right? People who are, and here he says as thieves, doesn't have to be thieves, right? It could be the streets, and people who deceive for nothing, right? There's not even a benefit in it. They're just doing it. They're just doing it for fun. That's how I would understand Bogdim Rekam, but he understands it here as who strip the poor. Is Darchecha Adonai Hodi'eni, God make known your path, make known your paths. Says Orcho Techalandeni, teach me your ways. And it's interesting. Derachecha, it's interesting that these are in the plural. You might say, well, teach me your way, right? And teach me, or instead of say orcha, say teach me your paths, teach me your path, teach me your way. But no, it's that there are multiple, right? Orchotecha, there are multiple ways, there are multiple paths, right? It's not as if there's only, that there's only one way, and we have a kind of modern expression to say that somebody has stopped being religious is to say that they're off the derech, that they're off the path, right? They're gone off the path. Well, usually that's because the path has become too small, or because people have said, okay, there's only one little tiny path that you're allowed to walk on, and that's it, right? And that one right there, right? But here he's saying, listen, please God, let me know, right? Let me know, make known your paths, and teach me your ways. Hadricheni be'amitai lamdeni. He says, guide me in truth and teach me. Ki ata Elohei Yishi, because you are the God who will save me. Odcha kiviti kol hayom, and you, I put my hope in you all day, right? And again, this kiviti is not, we're translating it as put my hope, is you are what I concentrate on. You're what I wait for, right? It's hope, it's waiting, it's concentrating, it's being aware of, right? Focusing on. You're what I focus on. I focus and I wait for you, right? And I'm here with you all day long. Please guide me in your truth and teach me, because you're the only one who can save me. You're the one who can tell me what to do. And I think why the rabbis say to say this every day. I think they say to say this every day because every day we need guidance. Every single day we face crossroads where we have no idea which direction to go, or we're not sure, and we have to, and there's no place to go. There's no place to go but to our Creator, and there's no place to turn except to our Creator to say, Hadricheni be'amitcha, guide me with your truth and teach me, because I don't know the truth. I only know what I see from my tiny little eyes, my tiny little perspective, and from my little corner of the world. And I need you to give me guidance. Zechor rachamecha Adonai v'chasadecha. God, remember your mercy and your love. Ki me'olam hema, because they're eternal. Because they're eternal. You know, your mercy, your mercy and your mercy and your love, those are things which go on, those things which go on forever, and they go on forever and ever. There's no end to them. Chataot no'orai v'shai al tizkur. He says, my youthful sins and my defiance. You know, the things, you know, whenever it says my youthful sins, all right, maybe a better way to translate that is like my immaturity. Because I can say with absolute assurance that I mean, I don't experience necessarily the same things that I did as a kid, but I certainly experience a lot of immaturity, right? So my immaturity and my defiance, please, you know, don't remember them, right? Please try not to pay attention to the ways in which I'm mature, the ways in which I've failed, to grow. Is because recall instead what, this is a very nice translation. Right? It says, recall instead what awakens your kindness, the man tuvcha, because of your good, because of your goodness. You know, not necessarily because of my goodness, right? I'm not saying that I have something special that you should, but for your goodness, out of pure kindness, right? Overlook my immaturity, overlook my stupid mistakes, please, right? Overlook my stupid mistakes and overlook my immaturity and the ways in which, you know, I failed to grow, and instead recall your kindness because you're good. That's what goodness is. Which is also good to know, because that's also how we should be treating other people, right? I mean, not holding on to their immaturities, not holding on to the things that they did before, right? Not holding on to those things. We ask God, if we ask God to do that for us, then we also have to do that for other people. If we're asking God, please, you know, overlook all of my immature, stupid things that I did, right? And instead, you know, look at me with generosity and kindness, because you're good, then we have to be good also. We have to do the same thing, right? We can't ask this from God if we're not willing to do it for other people. Tov Yasha Adonai, says God is generous and fair. Now, those things are so different, right? Good and fair are two different things, right? Yashar means straight, right? Literally means straight, right? A person who's straight isn't always good, right? A person who's straight isn't always good. You know, like somebody says, he's a straight shooter, right? That's not a person you necessarily want to be around a lot, right? Okay, that's not necessarily kind. But here he says he is both, right? Tov v'yashar. He's simultaneously kind and generous, but also fair and straight. The alkein, therefore, yoreh chatayim b'derech. Therefore, he's able to direct sinners towards the right path. In order to direct people in the right way, right? He has to be simultaneously tov, generous, good, and yashar, straight. You know, there's a story in the Talmud that it's actually told about a character by the name of Yeshu. It's not clear whether that Yeshu is supposed to be Jesus or not, but it's kind of a little weird because the timing is strange. He's the student of somebody named Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, and they were exiled to Alexandria, Egypt. He and his teacher, Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, and they were sitting in a bar I don't know, in those days, not a bar. They were sitting in a restaurant. They're sitting in a restaurant. And the student, Yeshu, saw his, maybe I've told this story before, but you have to forgive me. I repeat myself endlessly. He saw his teacher wink at the waitress, or so he thought. And so he turns to his teacher and he goes, "Dude, did you just wink at the waitress?" And his teacher gets angry at him. And he says, "You know, I always knew you were a bastard, but now you behave like one." And Yeshu got so upset, so hurt. And he said, "This is your Torah? This is what Torah is to you? Do you insult me like that?" He says, stands up and he leaves. So the Talmud says, don't be like Yeshua ben Prachia. It says, don't treat somebody like that. He says, if you have a problem with somebody, right? He says you should push them away with your left hand, but you should draw them to you with your right. Now, if we do that, I can demonstrate, okay? If I draw with my right and I push with my left, what happens? The glass, it turns, right? If I push, he says, so I can turn the person, right? That's tshuva, toba, right? Turning of the person. So here it says God is generous and fair. If you have both those sides, you have the right hand and you have the left hand. The right hand is the hand of goodness and kindness. The left hand is the hand of being yashar, of being straight and honest. And if we're able to use both those hands, then we're able, right? Then that's how God directs us, right? So we find the derech, so we find the right path. And here it's in the singular, right? Because it's the right path for us, right? So while there's not just one path for everybody, there is the right path for us in this moment, and we can pray to God to help us find that right path for us in this moment. So we're up at 147, so I should stop there. Or otherwise I'll just keep going on and on and on and on. So thoughts?
I think that was a good way to end everything, because it's a
Okay.
very good reminder.
Okay.
Very, very hard to do that for, I think, most of us.
Yes. Yeah, it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge.
And
'Cause,
like, and similar to the beginning, because there was something like, well, I don't remember exactly. It just felt like that it began a similar way with
yeah, it's beautiful.
the reminder that it's hard. You know, you just don't speak badly. Don't be nasty.
Yep. Don't be nasty. Simple as that. Simple as
And
that.
it's not always easy, unfortunately.
You
You
know,
have to work hard on yourself.
true. You know, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said, you know, somebody asked him like, what are we supposed to do with your teachings? You know, he gave these very complicated, teachings, and he said the main thing is to make it into something practical. So, the main thing to everything that you learn should be to make it into something practical. So if you come away with like one little practical thing from any of this stuff, that's the best thing that can happen. So I wish everybody a beautiful week, and I hope I'll see some of you on Wednesday for Duties of the Heart.
Inshallah.
And if anybody has any questions, you have any thoughts, we have the WhatsApp group, and if not the WhatsApp group, and I'll make sure Sebastian gets in there, and we will and anybody needs to get a hold of me for anything, you know how to find me. And I love you all, and I hope everybody has a beautiful week and is healthy and happy. And Sebastian, so good to see you. So it makes me very happy. Okay. Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you so much, Lee.
You're welcome.